Chapter 1. Seeds of Kindness. My name is Agnes Gongsa-Bajaxiu, but everyone calls me Agnes. I was born in Skopje, a city with tall mountains and a wide river flowing through it. We weren't rich, but our family always had enough food on the table and a warm bed to sleep in. My papa was a kind man who worked hard at his job as a medicine maker. My mama stayed home, taking care of me and filling our house with laughter and love. One day, the ground shook and rumbled very badly. It was a big earthquake. Many houses fell down and people got hurt. I was only 8 years old then, but I remember the fear and sadness everyone felt. But in that scary time, I also saw good things. People helped each other find their families, shared their food and water, and offered a place to sleep if their homes were broken. It showed me how important it is to care for others when they are in trouble. My family went to church every Sunday. We learned about Jesus, a kind and helpful man who loved everyone. The stories about how he cared for sick people and those with no money stayed with me for a long time. Even as a little girl, I felt a growing desire to help others, especially those who were having a hard time. School was easy for me, especially learning about history and different languages. But the thing I liked most was helping others. I joined groups at church that brought food and helped clean the homes of people who were poor. Helping clean, deliver food, and play with sick children made me happy. When I turned 18, a special feeling grew inside me. It felt like a message telling me to give my life to God and help the poorest people in the world. It was a difficult decision because I loved my family very much. But after praying for a long time, I knew this was the right path for me. Chapter 2. A Big Change to India. Saying goodbye to Skopje was hard. It was the only city I had ever known, and leaving my family behind felt scary. But the feeling of needing to help the poorest people in the world was stronger. In 1929, at the age of 18, I joined the Sisters of Loreto, a group of kind women who lived together and served God. They were going to send me to a faraway place called Ireland to learn more about being a good helper. Ireland was very different from Skopje. The mountains weren't as tall, and the river wasn't as wide. But the Sisters of Loreto were very kind and welcoming. They taught me many things, like how to pray even better and how to take care of sick people. But the most challenging thing was learning a new language called English. It sounded very different from my own language, and it took a long time to understand and speak it well. After a few years in Ireland, the Sisters of Loreto told me they were sending me on another big journey, this time to a place called India. I had never heard of India before, but I knew it was a big country with many people. I was excited to learn more about it and meet the people who lived there. India was amazing. There were beautiful mountains, wide rivers, and even big beaches by the ocean. But there were also many people who were very poor. They lived on the streets, with no homes or enough food to eat. Seeing them made my heart sad, but it also made my desire to help them even stronger. The Sisters of Loreto in India worked at a school for girls. Most of the girls who came to the school were from poor families and didn't have many things. I loved being a teacher and helping them learn new things. But I still felt a pull to help the people who were living on the streets, the ones who needed the most help. One day, while traveling by train, I had a very strong feeling. It felt like a vision from God, showing me Jesus on the streets, suffering with the poorest people. It was a turning point in my life. I knew I could no longer stay within the walls of the school. I had to go out and directly serve those suffering on the streets. Chapter 3. Stepping out into the streets. Leaving the safety and comfort of the convent was a big decision. The Sisters of Loreto were kind and supportive, but the call to help the poorest on the streets burned brightly within me. With their blessing, in 1946, I stepped out into the unknown, ready to face a new challenge. Calcutta, the city I chose, was overwhelming. The streets were crowded with people, many of them homeless and hungry. The air smelled of trash and sickness. It was a difficult sight to take in, but it didn't scare me away. This was where I belonged, where I could truly help those most in need. I started small, with what little I had. I would find people on the streets who were sick or injured. I'd clean their wounds, offer them water and some food, and simply talk with them. Slowly, they began to trust me. They saw my genuine care and willingness to help, not judge. Learning Hindi, the language spoken by most people in Calcutta, was crucial. It was like learning a whole new way of talking, but it was necessary. Speaking Hindi allowed me to connect with people on a deeper level, understand their problems, and share stories of God's love and kindness. As time passed, others who felt the same way I did joined me in this work. Young women who shared my desire to serve the poorest people in Calcutta started to come and help. We lived simply, wearing white cloths with a blue border, a symbol of both purity and the service we offered. Finding a place to stay was another challenge. We eventually found a small, rundown house that we could use as a shelter. It wasn't much, but it was a place where we could care for the sick and offer a temporary home to those who had nowhere else to go. Every day was different. We might encounter someone with a serious illness, someone abandoned by their family, or a child lost and scared. No matter the situation, we tried our best to help in any way we could. Sometimes, all it took was a kind word, a listening ear, and a helping hand to make a difference in their lives. Of course, there were difficulties. We didn't have a lot of money and resources were scarce. But with every challenge, our faith grew stronger. We knew God was with us, guiding us on this path of serving the poorest. We found joy in the small victories, like seeing a sick person recover, a lost child reunite with their family, or simply a smile on the face of someone who felt forgotten. Slowly, news of our work spread throughout Calcutta. People began to see the difference we were making and offered their support. Some donated food and medicine, while others volunteered their time to help care for the sick and homeless. We were grateful for every bit of help we received, as it allowed us to continue our mission. This new chapter in my life wasn't easy, but it was filled with purpose. Stepping out of the comfort zone of the convent brought me face to face with the harsh realities of poverty and suffering. But it also opened my heart to the incredible strength and resilience of the human spirit. And most importantly, it allowed me to live a life dedicated to serving those most in need, following the call that had been growing within me since childhood. Chapter 4: The Missionaries of Charity. The work in Calcutta grew steadily. The small house we found became a beacon of hope for the poorest people. We cared for the sick, offered shelter to the homeless, and shared food with the hungry. But the need was vast, and we knew we couldn't do it alone. The young women who joined me brought their own skills and compassion. Some were good at cleaning and caring for the sick, while others had a way of comforting children or making people feel welcome. Seeing their dedication and love for the work filled my heart with joy. It was like a tiny seed of kindness planted years ago in Skopje was finally sprouting and growing into something bigger. In 1950, with the support and blessing of the church, we officially became a religious group called the Missionaries of Charity. It was a formal way of recognizing our commitment to serving the poorest of the poor. Our mission was simple: to love and care for those who were most forgotten and neglected by society. We called them the unwanted, unloved, uncared for. One of the most pressing needs we saw was a place for the dying to spend their last days with dignity and love. Many people were abandoned on the streets, left to die alone. We couldn't bear the thought of them suffering in such a way. So, we opened our first home for the dying. It wasn't a fancy place, but it was clean, peaceful, and filled with love. We cared for the sick, comforted the lonely, and offered them a chance to die with respect and care. Another area we focused on was leprosy. It's a terrible disease that causes people to lose parts of their body and makes them outcasts in society. Many people with leprosy were shunned and forced to live on the outskirts of the city. We couldn't stand by and watch them suffer alone. So, we opened a leper colony, a place where people with leprosy could receive proper medical care, live with dignity, and feel loved and accepted. Our work wasn't limited to just these two areas. We started mobile clinics, bringing basic medical care directly to the people who couldn't reach us. We set up soup kitchens to feed the hungry and offered clothing and basic necessities to those who had nothing. There were challenges, of course. Some people questioned our methods, criticizing the simplicity of our homes and the lack of advanced medical facilities. But we weren't focused on fancy buildings and expensive equipment. Our aim was to provide love, care, and a touch of humanity to those who had been stripped of everything. Sometimes, resources were scarce. We relied on donations from kind people who supported our mission. But even when things were difficult, we never gave up. We learned to be resourceful and make the most of what we had. As our work gained recognition, more and more people volunteered their time and skills. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and others offered their services to help us care for those in need. It was a beautiful thing to see people from all walks of life coming together, united by a common desire to serve those less fortunate. News of the Missionaries of Charity spread beyond Calcutta. Soon, we started receiving requests for help from other parts of India. With a growing number of volunteers and some financial support, we opened new homes and centers in other cities. The seed of kindness, planted in Skopje and nurtured in Calcutta, was now starting to take root in other parts of the country. This new chapter of the Missionaries of Charity was filled with blessings and challenges. But one thing remained constant: our unwavering commitment to serve the poorest of the poor, to show them the love of God, and to offer them a glimmer of hope in the midst of suffering. Chapter 5. The Seed Spreads Beyond India's Borders. The Missionaries of Charity continued to grow. We opened more homes for the dying, orphanages, and leprosy clinics across India. It was heartwarming to see our work expanding and reaching more people in need. But the call to serve wasn't limited to India's borders. In 1950, a letter arrived from a priest in Venezuela, a faraway country in South America. The letter described the harsh realities faced by the poorest people in Venezuela. It spoke of hunger, homelessness, and sickness, much like what we saw in Calcutta. Reading the letter, I felt a familiar feeling, a call to help. It was like the seed of kindness, now a strong plant, was sending out its roots to reach new ground. Planning a new mission in a different country was a big challenge. Learning about a new place, its culture, and the specific needs of its people required a lot of effort. Thankfully, some of our volunteers were familiar with Venezuela and helped us understand the situation there. Opening our first center outside India was both exciting and nerve-wracking. We weren't sure how people would react to our simple ways and our focus on the poorest. The language was different, the food was different, and even the customs were different. But one thing remained the same: the suffering of those in need. Despite the differences, our love and care transcended all boundaries. We learned basic Spanish to communicate with the people, and slowly, trust began to build. People saw our genuine desire to help and welcomed us into their communities. The success of our mission in Venezuela encouraged us to explore other countries. Soon, Missionaries of Charity Sisters were serving the poorest of the poor in many parts of the world. We went to Africa, where poverty and disease were widespread. We went to Asia, where wars and natural disasters had left many people struggling. We went to Latin America, where inequality and injustice created much suffering. In each new place, we faced different challenges. There were language barriers that made communication difficult. Some cultures had different beliefs about illness and death. We had to learn to adapt our methods while staying true to our core mission, love and service. There were also moments of joy and reward. Seeing a child recover from illness, a family receive food to feed their children, or a lonely person find companionship brought immense satisfaction. These small victories fueled our determination to continue our work. The growth of the Missionaries of Charity also brought its own challenges. Balancing the spirit of simplicity with the need for efficient management of resources became a constant concern. We didn't want to become a big organization focused on buildings and budgets. Our focus was to maintain the personal touch, the love and care we offered to each individual we served. Despite the challenges, the seed of kindness planted years ago continued to grow and reach new places. The Missionaries of Charity Sisters, inspired by the call to serve, were spreading love and hope across the globe. Chapter 6: Facing Difficulties. Our work with the Missionaries of Charity wasn't always easy. It wasn't like taking a walk in a beautiful park on a sunny day. There were challenges that tested our faith and made us wonder if we were doing the right thing. Some people didn't understand why our homes for the sick and dying were simple. They thought fancy machines were more important, but we knew love and a peaceful environment mattered most. It was like they were looking at the outside of a house and not realizing the kindness that filled it. There were also misunderstandings about our beliefs. Sometimes, people thought we were trying to change their religion when we helped them. This wasn't true at all. We offered help to everyone in need, no matter what religion they followed. It was like offering a glass of water to someone thirsty. It didn't matter if they believed in the same things as us. Seeing so much suffering every day could be very sad. It was like seeing a flower wilting in the hot sun. We saw people who were sick, lonely, and scared. It weighed heavily on our hearts, but we learned to cope. We leaned on our faith in God, who loved everyone and wanted us to be kind. We also supported each other like sisters, sharing our burdens and finding strength together. And even in the midst of sadness, we found joy in the small ways we could bring comfort. Maybe it was a kind word, a gentle touch, or simply being there for someone in their time of need. There were even times when people misunderstood me Mother Teresa. Some newspapers and TV shows described me as strict and uncaring. They said our focus on poverty made developing countries seem bad. It hurt to be misunderstood, but we kept our eyes on our mission. We weren't there to judge or criticize, but to offer love and care to everyone who came to us. It was like offering a helping hand to someone who had fallen. It didn't matter why they fell, just that they needed help getting back up. Despite these difficulties, we never forgot why we started. We helped everyone who came to our doors, the sick, the homeless, the children who had lost their parents, and the dying. We listened to their stories, offered a helping hand, and showed them they weren't alone in the world. These challenges were like thorns on a rose bush, but the seed of kindness continued to bloom and spread its message of love and compassion throughout the world. Chapter 7: Recognition and Growth. The Missionaries of Charity's work gained recognition as news outlets and TV shows began sharing stories of our love and care for the poorest people. These stories not only informed the public about our mission, but also inspired many to get involved. Awards and honors, including the Nobel Peace Prize for Mother Teresa, followed, though the greatest reward remained witnessing positive changes in the lives we touched. Even world leaders visited our homes, acknowledging the global issue of poverty and suffering. This recognition brought significant benefits. News stories and awards attracted more donations and volunteers, allowing us to expand our reach. Witnessing our dedication, people were inspired to volunteer, donate, or even start their own charities. Additionally, the positive recognition opened doors in new countries, where governments trusted us to establish homes and centers for those in need. Growth, however, came with challenges. Maintaining our core values of simplicity, love, and service to the poorest became crucial. We didn't want to become a giant organization focused on finances and buildings. Criticism also arose, with some questioning our methods or focus on poverty. We learned to manage this by staying true to our mission and letting our actions speak for themselves. Despite these challenges, the growth and recognition brought immense joy. The seed of kindness, planted years ago, had blossomed into a beautiful garden offering love, hope, and care to the world's most vulnerable. Inspiring stories emerged. A young volunteer finding his purpose as a doctor for the poor, a family finding solace after a disaster, and a terminally ill person finding comfort in their final days. These and countless others became testaments to the power of love, compassion, and service. The Missionaries of Charity had become a beacon of hope, and the seed of kindness continued to spread its message of love throughout the world. Chapter 8: A Life Dedicated to Helping Others. Years passed, and the work of the Missionaries of Charity continued to grow. My hair turned white, and wrinkles etched themselves onto my face. But my heart remained filled with the same passion to serve the poorest of the poor and show them God's love. Traveling became more difficult as I aged. My body grew tired, and long journeys took their toll. But whenever I felt weary, I would remember the faces of those we helped. A child's smile after receiving a warm meal, a mother's tears of gratitude for finding care for her sick child, the peaceful expression on the face of someone dying with dignity. These memories fueled my determination to continue our mission. Despite the challenges, there were moments of joy and connection. Visiting different countries, I met people from all walks of life, kind volunteers who dedicated their time, generous donors who supported our work, and government officials who helped us establish new centers. Each interaction reminded me of the vast network of love and compassion that had grown alongside the Missionaries of Charity. As the leader of this movement, I felt a responsibility to guide and inspire the sisters. We held regular meetings where we shared stories, offered prayers, and discussed ways to improve our service. It was a beautiful community of women, united by a common purpose, to love and serve those most forgotten by society. Looking back on my life, I knew it had been a journey filled with both blessings and challenges. But through it all, I never regretted the path I chose. My life had been dedicated to serving others, and that brought me immense peace and satisfaction.